So it was on 30th April 2023 that we met here. I met you with And Living Again, something that I wrote and which my wife decided to get published as a book. It was a time when I was actually convalescing from stroke, which I am still doing, and I really felt that I am back for another stint in life. A lot of you were around me at that time. Many such persons are standing right in front, sitting right in front. I am so thankful to all of you. And today again, we are here in the same hall. That's God's special mercy on me. The whole reason behind meeting you was that I wanted to meet you. The release of the book and all, it is just an excuse. The actual reason was that I wanted to meet all of you. Because you know, months after the stroke that I had in 2021, I realized that life is too short, too fragile, and too unpredictable. And therefore, if we don't meet people whom we love and whom we want to meet, you never know, one fine morning we'll wake up just to receive the news that some XYZ whom we loved has left this world. Well, I am overwhelmed at your being here this evening. Believe me, all of you are very dear friends. With all of you, I have interacted at some point of time. It doesn't matter whether we meet for years or not. It doesn't matter whether we speak to each other for years or not. You know, these emotions are very aptly conveyed by a few lines of a piece of shairi from a gentleman called Wasim Barelvi, you must have heard, who had recited it, whom I heard for the first time in person when I was posted in Bareilly as a commissioner. And I used to visit him just for fun. And actually I used to enjoy his company. So I would like to recite those lines to you, even at the cost of a repetition. Because these are my favorite lines and these actually convey the emotions that I am trying to convey. मैं उसके घर नहीं जाता, वो मेरे घर नहीं आता. मैं उसके घर नहीं जाता, वो मेरे घर नहीं आता. इन एहतियातों से लेकिन ताल्लुक मर नहीं जाता. मैं उसके घर नहीं जाता, वो मेरे घर नहीं आता. इन एहतियातों से लेकिन ताल्लुक मर नहीं जाता. बुरे हैं अच्छे हैं जैसे भी हैं, बुरे हैं अच्छे हैं जैसे भी हैं, सभी रिश्ते यहीं के हैं. बुरे हैं अच्छे हैं जैसे भी हैं, सभी रिश्ते यहीं के हैं. किसी को साथ दुनिया से कोई लेकर नहीं जाता. वैसे तो खुले हैं और भी कई दर इसी शहर में. वैसे तो खुले हैं और भी कई दर इसी शहर में. तुम्हें बताओ कहाँ जाता अगर मैं लौट के घर नहीं जाता. Now, let me come to the books. But before that, I just want to talk about three very brief points. First of all, recently, my younger sister, we have grown together, she's 4 years younger to me. She was elected as the president of the IMA Gorakhpur unit. And not that IMA president of a unit is a very great thing. After all, there are thousands of units. But, you know, it assumes a significance because it is in the state of the probably the most powerful chief minister of India. So I'm very happy about it. And I'm happy that she is here. She had to be here. She is my lifeline. Secondly, you see, all my batchmates of service and other services, IAS, IPS, they're all, many of them are very dear friends. But two persons during this period of stroke, convalescence from stroke, I discovered, I mean, their talents, their skills at writing and fine arts, I couldn't fathom earlier. Fortunately, both of them are present here. One is here at the stage, one is there sitting, one is Sangeeta Kampani, who is sitting in the crowd. She, during the last 2 years, wrote 3 books. Those 3 books are My Daughter's Wedding. The most recent book is, the second is She Shabnam. I have read each word of those books thoroughly. And third is many versions of Mrs. Shabnam, Mrs. Jessica. It looks, those who don't read seriously, they would mistake that probably these must be dealing with some gender issues or nothing like that. As she has herself said in the preface to one of these books, that everything that she has written is not about a war of genders. It is about conciliation of genders. The lucidity of her expressions, the way I'm spellbound when I read her. Her command of her language, English language, is amazing, phenomenal. So I just wanted to mention this publicly. If you are interested in reading books, please do find time to go through her books. There is another Sangeeta who is sitting on the stage. You know, we have been friends for the last 40 years. We have been friends for the last 40 years, and we used to interact at the academy, but I never took her very seriously for long. But she is not only a writer, she is more than that. She is a painter of a very high repute, with her painting exhibitions and shows being held abroad in Europe and various countries of Asia. My God, such phenomenal talents. They are my service background and they are my friends. I am really fortunate. I just wanted to make these points right in this meeting. Excuse me for that. Now let me come to the books. You know, last time when we met, I told you that the basic trigger for the book, my first book, And Living Again, was the Hollywood actress Sharon Stone. After that, I have been following her. You know, her book, The Beauty of Living Twice. Not that it's a great book, but certain parts of that book in which, she had a stroke, that I must tell you first, in 2001. The kind of which I had. But hers was a more serious stroke. She was at the height of her glamour, at the height of her acting career. She had become a billionaire by that time, most sought after woman of USA, of the world, one of the most sought after in the world. She wrote a book, This Beauty of Living Twice, that she wrote in 2021. 2021, I had this stroke, and one day I was just perusing my mobile phone and I found this news item. Then I did a research on this. I was amazed to see that she had, it was reported that she bled for 9 days altogether. And there was 0.1% chance of a survival, that she survived. And not only that, in the book she had she has gone about discussing her emotional turmoil and everything in the process of her convalescence. And she has stated that it took her 7.5 years for her to recover fully. But as American institutes say, I have done enough research on that, the period for total recovery is very long. But about 7% of the patients with the right kind of physiotherapy and everything and doctor's advice, they do recover. Perhaps I am only wishing. I have already got a second life. I am grateful to the Almighty that perhaps I will also fall in that second category. And I feel very happy whenever I read any news of Sharon Stone doing well. Her emotional turmoil about she had a divorce after that because the husband had forsaken her during her crisis. She didn't accept him when he came back after she recovered. So all these things were very inspiring and eye-openers rather, I must say, in human relations and everything. Well, now let me actually come to my books. You know, it's nothing, not that I'm a great writer, nothing like that. But yes, I love writing. Of whatever level it is, I love writing, I love reading and writing. So I was restless about writing on certain issues which always captured my mind. And there were some issues. I was quite a significant student leader in, although there is a friend from JNU of those times, Vineet Narayan here, he may or may not agree, but I had my own world. In my student days in JNU, I was quite politically conscious also. So there are a lot of issues like communalism, like secularism, corruption and all that. These have been bothering the nation since 47. I thought I must write on these issues. Whether it has any impact or not, that is immaterial. At least it will keep the matter open for debates and discussion. That's why this book, Living Through Time's Game. But 3 initial chapters of this book are on different issues. The first chapter is about growing with books. In which I have referred to those books which have influenced the mankind and which have influenced me personally. You know, the world of books is a huge world. In one human life, it's not possible to go through each book. But then, yes, right from my school days, I have been referring to many books. So I have referred to many books in that chapter which have always captured my attention. The second chapter is, I have captioned that chapter, Growing with Words. You know, words play a very significant role in life. In fact, words regulate our existence. Words actually mean everything for a person who is educated and who interacts with human beings. In this chapter, I have also cited about 6, 7, 8 articles written by my late father, who was a government officer, which he wrote in 60s and 70s. You know, out of 4 siblings, I had preserved those write-ups. In those days, there were different types of typewriters, handwritten. So, just to perpetuate the memory of my father, he was an excellent writer. I have cited those in this chapter. The third chapter is Lest We Forget, in which I have given a general thesis about why we should remember our past and all that, and in which I have also discussed about 2 very important persons in life. Both were doctors, gynecologists, based in a place called Bhagatpur in Bihar, place to which I belong. They enjoyed the status of goddesses, literally, because once when I was not married, I was only having a love affair with my wife to be married. Once I told some fellow passengers in a crowded train, because in the Mufassil trains, co-passengers have a habit of, at that time I was in service, but not in IRS, I was in a different service. He asked me, where are you going? Saab, kahan ja rahe hain? I told him I am going to Bhagalpur. Then the fellow further carries on the discussion. He asked me, Bhagalpur mein kahan ja rahe hain? You know, there is a general tendency in the train. Then I told him the name of the person to whose house I was going, who was the mother of my present wife. And once he listened to her name, बोला साहब आप उनके क्या हैं? तो क्या बोले क्या हैं? I said हम उनके दामाद हैं. You know, he literally gave me his seat in the train. I was surprised. That's all. So I have, out of the 2, I have recalled her. That's all. Now, rest of the chapters are actually on issues like chapter-wise I'll go. The next chapter is on JNU. You know, I was a student of JNU. Not that I did very well academically because my attention was on UPSC, which I cleared. But then, you know, JNU's role in my life had been very substantial. Because the manner those days, things were taught there, the extracurricular activities like election debates, the lectures by visiting persons from outside, those were so brilliant, so superior in level that I realized the brilliant student of Patna suddenly discovered, no, there is much more to know in life. So I am in love with JNU. Now JNU has, for one reason or the other, been in controversy since quite some time. I think it's mainly because of political interference, I should say, yes, political interference by one spectrum or the other, but not a healthy interference ever during the last 5 decades. So I have generally given my views about what is the trouble about JNU and why we should take all efforts to restore the old status of JNU as it was. And the whole debate, leftists, rightists, this is all stupid and nonsensical attitude. Even in the late 70s, when I entered JNU and early 80s, there were people of the left variety, but it was, we can't call them, we can't call the university as leftist and as though it is only leftists who were ruling the, no. Even at that time, one of the students' union president was not a leftist. He was, there was an organization called Freethinkers. There was a guy called David Thomas. He was the president. He became the president only because of his oratorial skills, his academic background. He was an B.Tech from IIT Delhi. Then he had come to JNU to do MA in history, and he was 2 years senior to me. The guy, I am yet to see a better speaker, orator than him. So this was the JNU of our times, where all kinds of views were heard and respected. So the whole chapter has been on JNU. The next chapter is on corruption. And it's not just a theoretical output, it's well thought. Based on experiences within the highest echelons of the government that I have been, the inadequacies, follies of the investigative agencies are far too many to write. Remedy is a necessity, but we need to go into the causes of its origin. Whatever we may say, there is no solution to corruption except building character in the youngest and the most impressionable generation. That could be tough, that may be utopian, maybe, but then we need to do that. Now, secularism of late has caught the attention of everyone. It has led to endless debates by leaders of the society and learned people. Each one of us knows where the problem lies. Distortions of history have taken place by all sides. There is no solution to the problem in a democratic framework unless each one of us remains committed to fostering a society that champions equality, justice and unity for every citizen. Together, through open dialogue and a shared commitment to social harmony, we can build a future that truly reflects the principles of a diverse, inclusive and secular India, and an India which upholds the principles of equality, unity and justice for all, irrespective of their religious background. In Chapter 7, on the IRS, my thrust has been to drive home the point as to how the IRS could become an agency of social change. IRS has tremendous potential. Some senior officers who mattered in the past in the Central Board of Directors, like Mr. Arvind Modi is here, would agree, in which I have given the reason for, I have given the example of IRS of United States of America dealing with the greatest mafia, Al Capone. How the police or no agency could deal with him, but the IRS, once it was brought in, they dismantled the Al Capone. So the violators of law can be most effectively dealt with by the IRS. That is my viewpoint. In Chapter 8, I've been generally a little skeptical about the civil service having the potential to bring about any meaningful change. The IS and in fact all the civil services are perhaps the only jobs in the world where one is paid for the entire career for having obtained the job. No recruitment can guarantee fitness forever. I don't recommend scrapping of civil services forever. I don't recommend scrapping, but I do recommend need for certain structural changes forthwith. Ayodhya was prominently in the news when I was writing this book. So besides the chapter on secularism, I thought it worthwhile devoting a few words to Ayodhya separately. What I feel is that Ayodhya is now a part of India's collective consciousness, and it influences societal responses to future communal challenges. As a major pilgrimage site, the temple will contribute to religious tourism, offering insights into India's rich and diverse cultural landscape. The Ram Mandir is infinitely more than a religious event. It encapsulates India's complex interplay of religion, politics, culture, social dynamics, and above all, India's inherent secularism. Now, the penultimate chapter of the book deals with my nostalgia for a host of places I have been associated with since childhood. That's all about the first book, Living Through Times. Now, the second book, Dhanbad, the economics of coal, the mafia. Well, I am no expert on coal, therefore I cannot and I do not claim that the book is a thorough treatise on coal industry. But my posting at Dhanbad in my very young days in the IRS in 92-93 at a rather important and sensitive position of investigation and my interaction with the highest authorities in the administration of coal and the big industrialists in the business of coal gave me significant insights. One such connection is sitting here, Mr. Kedarnath Mittal. He himself is a big industrialist of Dhanbad. Coal is a big business, as you know, thermal power being the largest source of energy in the world. In India too, thermal power is the largest source of power, with 65% of the electricity consumed in India generated through thermal power plants. 22% is hydro, 3% is nuclear, and the rest 10% is from water sources. The total value of India's coal industry is about 1,800 billion rupees. The stories of the coal mafia from the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s were too fascinating for a young mind. Little did I know that I was myself going to have an unforgettable brush with the mafia in 1993. All these regions always suggested to me that I should write about the Dhanbad experience someday. So for those who are going to read, I have summarized my reasons for curiosity and fascination for Dhanbad and in the coal industry in the preface itself. I have referred to the story of Al Capone, the dreaded mafia of the USA, to indicate how powerful the revenue wing of the government could be to deal with even the most dreaded offenders under the law. In chapter 7, I briefly discussed the novel solution-oriented thought of Mr. Kedarnath Mittal on the issue of overloading of vehicles and the positive response of the government. In chapter 4, I have discussed my personal encounter with mafia a case in which my office was burned in brazen connivance with the police. The CBI's role was equally frustrating. In other chapters, I have written about coal as a non-renewable source of energy, the way we go about it, the Black Diamond City Dhanbad, corruption and mismanagement in the coal industry, with particular reference to BCCL, the subsidiary of Coal India, headquartered at Dhanbad, the crime syndicates, the group of people called the mafia. I am not a prophet of doom, but so I have written about the positive initiatives of the government, because of which things are looking up by the statistics in the public domain. I have also briefly talked about the places in Jharkhand today. Hope the readers find it a worthwhile culture. I will be grateful for your feedback, and I am sure that will improve my further efforts, endeavors at writing. So that's all about the book that I have to say. I leave the rest to my beloved friends on the dais. Two of them I know, I won't name them. They have the habit which I love about them. One is from the IS, another is from the IS. They read each word of a book. And the day I tell them there is a book, they immediately get it from Amel. They don't wait that I will send them. And on a daily basis, they start discussing with him. Sometimes I find it difficult to answer them. So I think they'll be enlightening you on the issues that I have dealt with, and that'll be more. Thank you very much.